The Christmas train was supposed to be warm, bright, and forgiving, the kind of place where strangers smiled at each other because the season demanded kindness. But for Margaret Hensley, it felt like a narrow hallway of judgment and impatience. Every seat too small, every glance lingering half a second too long, as if her body itself was an inconvenience the holiday hadn't planned for. She sat by the window, clutching a faded red handbag against her stomach, counting the stops under her breath the way a child counts sheep before sleep, afraid that if she didn't stay alert, the world would once again forget to make room for her. Snow streaked past the glass like white scars, and the train rocked gently, humming with laughter, cocoa cups clinking, children pressing their noses to the windows. Margaret hadn't traveled in years, not since her mother died, and the house felt too quiet to breathe. But her sister had insisted this time, promising Christmas lights, forgiveness, and a place where Margaret would belong again. "Just get on the train," her sister had said over the phone, cheerful and rushed. "I'll be waiting at Cedar Hollow Station. I won't let anything go wrong." Margaret wanted to believe that promise, the way she wanted to believe the conductor when he nodded too quickly and said, "Yes, ma'am. Your stop's Cedar Hollow," before hurrying away as if staying might require effort. As the night deepened, the car emptied, voices fading, laughter thinning into silence, until Margaret realized with a slow, sinking dread that the train was no longer slowing, no longer announcing stops, no longer acknowledging her existence at all. Panic rose hot and sharp in her chest, her fingers trembling as she tried to stand, blocking the aisle, apologizing over and over to no one in particular. But by the time she reached the door, the train hissed, jolted, and stopped somewhere dark and unfamiliar. And a voice called out briskly, "End of the line for this car." "Ma'am!" Snow rushed in like a slap as the door opened, and before Margaret could find the courage to argue, to explain, to ask for help, she was ushered down onto a platform lit by a single flickering bulb, the door slamming shut behind her with a finality that felt personal. The train pulled away, its red lights shrinking into the night, leaving her standing alone at a station that wasn't Cedar Hollow, wasn't anywhere she recognized, just a wooden sign half buried in snow reading Dry Creek Crossing. Margaret's breath came out in shaky clouds as the cold cut through her coat, and the weight of the moment pressed down harder than any number on a scale ever had. She tried to sit on a bench, but it was icy and narrow, and standing hurt her knees, so she hovered awkwardly, tears freezing on her cheeks, as she fumbled for her phone only to find the battery dead. The world felt cruelly symmetrical in that moment. Empty station, empty night, empty hope, and Margaret wondered, not for the first time, if she took up too much space in a world that didn't want to accommodate her at all. Minutes stretched into something unbearable, the wind howling through the gaps in the boards, when the crunch of tires on snow broke the silence, headlights swinging across the platform like a searchlight. A pickup truck rolled to a stop, old but sturdy, its engine rumbling steady and warm, and from it stepped a tall man in a worn ranch coat, boots dusted white, his breath calm and unhurried. He took one look at Margaret, her hunched shoulders, her red face, her trembling hands, and instead of staring or calculating, he simply asked, "Ma'am, are you all right?" The question alone nearly broke her, because it carried no edge. No surprise, no judgment, just concern. Margaret tried to answer, but her voice caught, so she nodded, then shook her head, then whispered, "I'm at the wrong station." The man glanced down the empty tracks, then back at her and said, "That train don't stop here after dark. You shouldn't be alone." He introduced himself as Daniel Cole, a rancher from a few miles out, explaining that he'd come to check the station because sometimes freight got stuck in the snow. But his words faded behind the way he opened his truck door wide without hesitation, as if space had never been an issue, as if her presence was expected. "Let's get you warm," he said, offering his arm not to pull her, but to steady her if she wanted it. Margaret hesitated, years of embarrassment screaming at her to refuse, to manage on her own, but the cold and the kindness won, and she took his arm, surprised by how solid and patient it felt. Inside the truck, the heater blasted blessed warmth, fogging the windows, and Daniel draped a blanket over her shoulders without a word, turning the radio low to a country Christmas song that hummed softly in the background. As they drove away from Dry Creek Crossing, Margaret stared out at the snow-covered fields, shame and relief tangling painfully in her chest, wondering why a stranger had stopped when a train full of people had not. Daniel didn't ask questions right away, didn't fill the silence with advice or assumptions, just drove, steady hands on the wheel, until finally he said, "We'll head to my place. Storm's getting worse, and Cedar Hollow's another hour at least. You can rest there. Then we'll figure out the rest in the morning." The word rest felt like a gift, and Margaret's eyes burned again as she nodded, realizing she hadn't felt allowed to rest in a very long time. When the ranch house came into view, a low, sturdy building glowing with warm yellow, light against the endless white something, inside her loosened just a little, though fear still whispered that kindness always came with conditions. Daniel parked, helped her down carefully, and guided her inside where the smell of coffee, pine, and wood smoke wrapped around her like a promise. "You're safe here," he said simply. And for the first time that night, Margaret believed him. And as the door closed behind them, sealing out the cold and the loneliness, she didn't yet know that being left behind by that Christmas train was about to change her life and his forever. If this story touched your heart even a little, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. These stories are about the moments when kindness shows up unexpectedly, and subscribing helps us share more of them with you.